Welcome back. Back in the month of May, a spokesperson for ISIS warned us to get ready for the bloodiest Ramadan in history for non-believers in Europe and the United States. Sadly, they lived up to that promise, killing over 800 people in the past 30 days in various terror attacks around the world. Here's a look at just this past week.
موقف الطوارئ بالحرم.
And one of those attacks was in Bangladesh, as you probably already know. An author from that area tweeted out, "For humanity's sake, please do not say Islam is a religion of peace. Not anymore." Joining me now to discuss this is counterterrorism consultant Oz Sultan and national security analyst from the Clarion Project, Ryan Mauro, joins us via Skype. Ryan, so when you see that montage of what took place over the past 30 days, can you agree with that woman, the author from Bangladesh, who says, please do not define Islam as a religion of love?
Well, you have to acknowledge that it's a religion of peace and war, that there are doctrines for both situations, and that when groups like the Islamic State are citing certain Islamic interpretations, even if most Muslims disagree with how those verses are being interpreted, nonetheless, they are citing certain Islamic texts, and so you have to wage an ideological war. Part of the reason that a lot of this bloodshed happened is because ISIS was saying that if you engage in jihad, it is 10 times as required during Ramadan, and the reward if you die in the process during Ramadan is 10 times greater once you reach paradise. So a lot of this is actually about the selfishness of the terrorists.
I know I'm going to guess, I shouldn't say I know, I'm going to guess that you as a Muslim do not agree with her statement.
I met with the Bangladeshi Islamic community the day after this happened out in Queens. And one of the big things to consider here is that ISIS is a cult. We've said this systematically. We've told people that they're Fuzlies, they are basically separatists. And if you look at their doctrine, you look at their belief system, they don't actually ask you to convert to Islam first. The first thing they ask you to do is to take a pledge to ISIS. That's not a religion, that's a cult. They may be using pieces of the religion, but they've weaponized it for their own aims. And as of 2 days, as of the attack in Saudi Arabia, they've said that their aim is to destroy the Kaaba. Their aim is to destroy the seat of Islam. So these aren't Muslims. I don't know what they are, but they're a cult, they're terrorists, and they need to be stopped.
Ryan, what do you say about that? Because, you know, my position has always been that the ban, or the temporary ban on Muslims, isn't something that can work. Simply because, if for no other reason, there just is no way to look under the hood and say, oh, here's a Muslim. Okay, there's no way of doing that. Anybody could lie, what have you. I've always been of the inclination that if you just lower the amount of people that we're allowing into this country, we could have far better security if we do better background checks. But at the same time, we've seen that terror attacks here in the U.S. are taking place from people who are already here, homegrown, people who've been radicalized. And so, you know, we've got Oz here saying that ISIS is a cult, but I've got people who are buying into the fact that, you know, I'm an infidel because that's what their religion is telling them.
They honestly believe what they're saying. I mean, if it was just about their own power, they wouldn't be doing counterproductive things like bombing Turkey. It is indeed a cult, but they also are Islamic. Now, as a Muslim, you can argue that their interpretations are way off, but we have to reconcile the fact that, for example, this book I'm holding up is a Sharia manual that's endorsed by Al-Azhar University, the most prestigious school of learning in Egypt. And a lot of what it teaches is similar to what ISIS believes. They have taken the Shahada, they have said the pledge of allegiance to Islam, so they are Muslims. And the reason it's important to recognize that is that then places the ball in the court of other Muslims to say, hey, you're claiming to be a member of my faith. Here is how you're wrong. Here's how your interpretations are wrong. And that has to take place, and it has to go beyond just ISIS. It has to go after these destructive concepts like the caliphate, theocracy, anti-Semitism, and all those different components.
When you hear Oz, the president, do everything he possibly can to remove the word Islam from anything that's involved with this stuff, do you agree with that, or do you think he should be identifying it as it should be?
The challenge that we have is that radical Islam was something that we used with the Taliban. And if you look at Jamaat Islamiyah, Boko Haram, ISIS, as well as a ton of these other terrorist groups, they've actually moved away from the religion, right? They have moved into a cult status. They're almost like the Branch Davidians of Islam, if we're going to look at them in terms of any kind of reconcilable terminology. The problem that we have is that there are several of them, and they are in destabilized regions. And they don't represent Islam, and they also don't necessarily represent anything of an ideology outside of chaos. The one thing I do agree with Ryan is that Muslims need to come together. This is not about praying anymore, okay? This is about the Ummah coming together and starting to have conversations. There's an organization out of Houston called ACT that is starting intra-faith discussions between Sunnis, Shias, Ahmadis, and others. That's a start. That's the start of pushing back.
Well, Ryan, I'm out of time, man. I'd like to have you weigh in again. I just don't have the time. Oz, same thing.
Okay.
Thank you. I just looked at the clock. I was like, wow, we got here quick. All right, tell me what you think. Send me an email at dmlreport@newsmax.com. And don't go away. We're going to be talking about Donald Trump and his VP selections.